I am going to finish the Six Dots book. So this is the second part, and this is the author's notes and some questions and answers at the end. If I ask you to make a list of great inventors, who would be on that list? Gutenberg, Da Vinci, Edison. Then there are Bell and Franklin, Marconi, Tesla, Carver, Whitney, Hopper. Just a sampling of more names you might consider, based on the number, kind, and overall impact of their creations. But do you know that nearly every day, whenever you're in a school, restaurant, hotel, elevator, bank, or other public space, the invention of a teenager is there too? The name Braille deserves to be on everyone's list of great inventors. Just like these others, he recognized a rough idea, a fingertip code used on battlefields, and worked exhaustively to shape it into something that changed the world forever. Unlike those other inventors, however, Braille was a child inventor who worked alone and without public support or financial backing, living in a converted prison building and already suffering the early signs of lung disease. Louis Braille managed to create a system of reading and writing for the blind that is still used today. In the past several centuries, no one so young has developed something that has had such a lasting and profound impact on so many people. This is my second book about Louis Braille. In 1994, my young adult biography of Louis Braille was published as part of the series Great Achievers, Lives of the Physically Challenged. The book was designed to inform, and it did so well enough, I think. But more recently, as I encountered examples of the Braille alphabet in public libraries and on college campuses, in airports, and on ATMs, I asked myself, what did it feel like to be Louis Braille? Nothing I'd read about the young Frenchman, including my own account, had led me to experience Braille's emotions. What was it like to be Louis Braille? This story is my attempt to answer those questions. And then on this page, there is questions and answers about Louis Braille. Why was Louis's invention of Braille so important? Well, Helen Keller compared Braille to Gutenberg, the inventor of the printing press. Before Gutenberg, literacy, reading, and writing belonged to a select few. Millions of ordinary people were, for the most part, left out. But then came the printing press, and suddenly everyone had access to books and the freedom to learn, to exchange ideas, and to improve their lives. The same is true for Louis's invention. Before Braille, the blind were shut off from reading and writing. The Braille system changed all of that. Question number 2. The Braille family showed courage and empathy toward Louis. Was that unusual? Yes, it surely was. In the early 1800s, a family's survival depended on its members doing their share of daily labor. Blind, deaf, or otherwise physically challenged children were often abandoned or given over to a traveling master who taught them to sing, dance, or perform tricks for money, much like circus animals. Determined that Louis would avoid such a fate, his family encouraged his independence and education. The third question: what changes did Louis make to the Braille system after his first demonstration? Well, the earliest version of Louis's code included a few of the dashes that Captain Charles Barbier's original night writing system had also used. But as Louis continued to refine it, he eliminated the dashes and added numbers, punctuation, and musical notation. By 1829, 5 years after he showed his work to Dr. Andre Pignier, he published a book, Method of Writing Words, Music, and Playing Songs by Means of Dots for Use by the Blind and Arranged for Them. The version of Braille explained in this book is essentially the same one that's used today. Question number 4. What was the Braille system of reading and writing officially adopted? Students at the Royal Institute of Blind Youth in Paris began using Braille immediately, but it wasn't officially adopted there until 1854, 2 years after Louis's death. By that time, the use of Braille had spread throughout Europe and also to North America. Its formal implementation, Mrs. Wilson can't read that word very good, however, was gradual and happened faster in Europe. The United States did not adopt Braille officially until 1932. Question 5. What else did Louis Braille invent? Well, Louis published books on the use of Braille in music, math, and mapping. With the help of his friend Alexander Fournier, he developed rapid graphics, also called Decapoint, a system that allowed blind and sighted people to write to each other. With Pierce Falcott, a blind musician and mechanic, Louis invented a typewriter-like machine for rapidgraph that was an early version of dot matrix printing. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 question. What role did music play in Louis's life? Louis mastered the cello and the organ and played the latter professionally at 2 major churches in Paris. He also tuned pianos near Courtrai. I can't say these words now. Because music was one of the few professional options for the blind. Musicianship. So working on music and the different instruments. It was one of the professional options for the blind, and because the sighted community had few objections to it, Louis made it a priority to develop his system of musical notation. As a result, his musical code gained widespread acceptance almost immediately. Next question. What happened after Louis finished his studies? Well, after completing his own education, Louis remained in Paris and became an assistant teacher at the Royal Institute for Blind Youth. In 1833, he became a full professor and taught history, grammar, geography, and math. After being diagnosed with incurable tuberculosis, he continued to teach, returning occasionally to his family's home to rest and to visit. He died 2 days after his 43rd birthday and was buried in his hometown, Coupvray. In 1952, the 100th anniversary of his death, his body was moved to the Panthéon in Paris, the final resting place of France's greatest men and women. Last question. How has Braille kept pace with the digital age? Advances in technology have dramatically improved the number and kind of devices that visually impaired individuals can use to read and write. Access to these specialized devices remains a challenge. However, one that organizations such as the American Foundation for the Blind, the National Federation of the Blind, and the National Library Service for the Blind and Physically Handicapped continue to address. Some examples include electronic Braille note takers, which provide an alternative to the traditional slate and stylus. Braille display technology, which provides information in Braille about what appears on a computer screen. Braille printers, which produce information from computer devices in hard copy, and digital libraries, where patrons can borrow books and magazines in Braille and in audio, as well as books that can be read by both sighted and blind individuals. Many smartphones and tablets also provide options for converting standard text to speech or to Braille. So this is a bunch of information about Braille and about Louis Braille and his invention.